Okay, so here we are once again with a Masters of the Universe Masterverse unboxing, and this is new Eternia Evil-Lyn. Yeah, last time I did an episode, I was talking about maybe I'd open up another one of the DC multiverse figures that I have, unless I could think of something better to do. And then I remembered, oh yeah, I still got a couple of Masterverse figures to open up, so we might as well go ahead and get those out of the way. And I've got two of them. One of these I bought a while back, and it's Triclops. So he's going to be the next episode. And then Evil-Lyn, we're going to do right now because I figured ladies first, right? So let's go ahead and have a look at this packaging. We got a nice photograph of the figure on the back with some Photoshop type effects, like a little bit of mystic energy surrounding the crystal ball at the end of her wand slash staff, I guess, whatever you want to make it, because the staff does extend. We got a nice portrait of Evil-Lyn on the side here, looking a little bit like Michelle Pfeiffer, I think, and her casting a spell with her wand. We've got one of these, I forget what these guys are called, Skeletor's henchmen from like some children's book, I think. Uh, Skella somethings, I forget. I don't remember. But they're coming out with a figure of those soon, so there will be that to come, and Evil-Lyn herself looking all sinister. Now, you notice that Evil-Lyn on this artwork has a slight yellowish cast to her skin, as Evil-Lyn usually has yellow skin, but the figure itself looks like it's just kind of a tan Caucasian color, not too dissimilar from any of the other human characters in Masters of the Universe. There are a few races that have they're humanoid characters, but they have inhuman skin colors, such as the Gar, which of course Keldor was a Gar, and Cyclone was a Gar, and Evil-Lyn. I don't know what the name of her race would be, but she has yellow skin, like not yellow like you say an Asian person has. Like an Asian person has yellow skin, but like an inhuman cast of yellow, like a lemon, like the original figure was lemon yellow, and it was probably to make her look somewhat inhuman looking. And then on the Filmation cartoon, she was still yellow in that, but it was more of like it was still closer to like a humanoid color. So and then of course she just had like regular Caucasian skin in the movie Masters of the Universe. They didn't see any need to color Meg Foster's skin at all, so she just looked like normal Caucasian color. But there's the crystal ball. So there's that. And I'm guessing there's more accessories over here. That's probably where her staff is. And some extra hands. So that's cool. And Mattel did that really annoying thing that I dislike, where they tape the cape in the package. I don't like that at all, because then it leaves residue on the cape. I don't want residue on my cape. All right, so there we go. And does not seem to be any rubber tabs or bands or anything like that. Let's very gently take her out of the package. Try to pull this cape through so it doesn't get too caught up on it. No, she does have some rubber tabs on all her wrists. I did not notice that. And then a couple around her ankles, but I was able to get it out just fine anyway. And I really like the head sculpt on this Evil-Lyn figure. So for those of you who don't know, when they were originally designing this character in the vintage 1980s line, Evil-Lyn, her look was based off of Sophia Loren, the legendary Italian actress. And I think they really caught her likeness with this. She's got those same sort of high cheekbones, strong jawline. You can see like the dark eyelashes and eyebrows. She looks like Sophia Loren. That's really cool. I like that. All right, so let's have a look at this other little bag of accessories here. And we have the extension for her wand, which actually doesn't look that long. And we have some extra hands. I'm going to rip the thing over. I don't like these paper envelopes. Hopefully they get rid of these soon, since we're not on plasticless packaging anymore. They just put it in a plastic bag, and then I can actually see what's inside of the bag. So Evil-Lyn has 2 solid fists, one for each hand, and she has 2 sort of spell casting hands, which look very cool. And like we often see with hands these days, I believe that these are the same exact hand, but just kind of mirrored. Hi, Sean Franklin, how you doing today? Another nice thing that I notice on these hands is that they painted on her fingernails, and it's like I can't tell in this light if it's black or like a really dark blue, but either would be appropriate. So it's really cool that they painted in her fingernails. Now I'm going to do something that I usually do with Evil-Lyn figures when I have alternate hands like this. Is I'm going to swap. She's got 2 gripping hands on the figure already, you can see. So I'm going to swap one of them out for the spell casting hand. And if I want to get her into a 2-handed pose with the staff or the wand or whatever, it will still be easy to do that with this spell casting hand. But that also gives us a little more display option. Man, she looks so regal and imperious right there. This is a great figure. I'm really digging it. So the original Evil-Lyn figure, those of you who remember having it back in the day probably remember that she had a dark blue costume with some light blue accents. And this kind of takes it a step further in that it's not just light blue accents, it's like a metallic light blue, kind of adding to the armor sort of look to it. So she's got light blue on the ram's horns on her bodice and her collar, and these spines on the fin on her helmet and the edges of the helmet, kind of like Magneto. They painted in the edges of the helmet with the light blue. And then the thing on her tummy, whatever that's supposed to be, looks like some kind of animal skull in this version. So, and she's got little skulls, little gunmetal silver skulls all around the belt on her trunks. So that's cool. And then, unlike the original figure, they gave her this kind of loincloth type thing, so that gives it some flexibility. You can see that like it's a nice, soft, pliable plastic. She's got like a lighter blue, and even lighter blue. There's 2 light blue metallic blues on here for the belt, and you can see it's got that kind of medium blue, we'll call it, for a bat on the buckle. Very cool. And then she's got that very light blue also on her wristbands. So very cool. Lots of different layers of blue to it. I'm really enjoying that. The silver skulls on the belt, that's just so cool. I don't know if that's like a deliberate homage to Mystique, but it kind of reminds me of Mystique. So that's neat. And then she's got dark blue boots with kind of a dark gray fur trim around them, which matches the dark gray fur trim around the collar of her armor. So that's pretty cool. She's a great looking figure. I'm like, she's really impressive looking. Now, it is unusual, like I said, to see an Evil-Lyn who has like the tanned Caucasian flesh like this. That's not something we see very often. Usually, Evil-Lyn is presented with, like I said, yellow skin, or skin with like at least somewhat of a yellow cast to it, an inhuman type of yellow cast, not like a human, like Asian person, different from that. But and then sometimes they'll give her like a really pale skin color, like very goth. But this is not that. This is. I feel like it's appropriate for a character in like a barbarian setting. And then of course she does have this fabric cape. I don't know why Mattel can get fabric that's so close to the kind of cape, the kind of fabric they used on Superpowers capes, and McFarlane can't. But this is pretty much the same kind of fabric that like old Superpowers figures and like 90s Batman figures had for their capes. So maybe McFarlane should look into that a little bit more. They got the spandex capes, and I think those are fine. Definitely better than those Christmas ribbon capes they had on the first McFarlane Superpowers. But if they wanted something really authentic, this is probably the most authentic to Superpowers cape fabric that I've seen. Anyway, let's go ahead and have a look at our articulation. So Evil-Lyn can look up about that far. She can look down about that far. Tilt her head kind of quizzically from side to side. Head rotates all the way around. even though she's got this slightly high collar, it doesn't seem to impede it too much. And of course, her arms rotate all the way around at the shoulders and move up about that far. So pretty decent range of motion there. No butterfly joint. Masterverse usually don't have them. Does not seem to be a bicep cut. That is a solid bicep, but the single bicep joint at the elbow does swivel all the way around and also like bends forward about that far and straightens out about that far. So that's how that is. She's got a torso joint right underneath the rib cage, so we can get some good posability out of that. The waist is a simple cut joint which turns all the way around, but it's enough that we with the torso joint we can still get some good poses out of her. So that spellcasting hand is just awesome. They did a good job with that. So let's see. Evil-Lyn can kick up. Oh, that's a really stiff joint. I don't even know if I want to take a chance on moving that too much right now. I might want to heat that up. It looks like it's one of those where like they did this sort of thing, and they tried to do this. Remember with the earliest NECA Defenders of the Earth figures, where like you can see if we really look at it that it's a ball joint that pops into a socket that's on the other leg joint, and I don't like that at all because that makes it hard to move those around independently since they're all kind of jointed together. Now you would think that it would still be like easy to move because it's on a ball joint technically, like the hip attaches to that joint with a ball joint, but it's like really tight. And I don't know, like it might be that might be like a hard plastic that might be kind of hard to get it to move, and I really don't want to break her, so I'm not going to try to move that around too much, that particular joint. But her other leg, at least, can kick up about that far. She does have a thigh joint, so that thigh cut, so that rotates all the way around at the thigh, as you can see. And then she's got double jointed knees, which are really stiff, but not inflexible. They're still moving. That's about the range of motion we get at the knee. There we go. She's got flat feet, no high heels on this one. Sometimes they give Evil-Lyn high heels, but this one does not. She has a boot cut. Boot rotates all the way around. Getting caught on that cape there. And then she's got nice rocker ankles that point down about that far, point up about that far, and then rotate all the way around. So other than this little snafu with the... I see what they're trying to do with this, and it does give it kind of like a drop-down quality, almost like the G.I. Joes have, but I don't think it works quite as well as they intended. And I think it's the main thing is that I think it would work fine since it's a ball joint, except for this ball joint is just way too stiff in terms of trying to move it back and forth on this leg. So that might just be on my example. It might be that if you buy this one, you might not have that problem, but I'm going to have to try to hit it with a hairdryer or something later because I want to try to loosen that joint up. So let's go ahead and have a look at her accessories. And she's, other than the hands that we already looked at, she's got technically one weapon, but it's in two parts. So here is her wand with the crystal ball attached to it. And of course, anybody who remembers the 1980s Evil-Lyn action figure remembers that she just had kind of a short wand, and most of us did not know at the time. Some of us were lucky enough to figure it out, but I was not. Evil-Lyn's wand would actually glow in the dark, but not a lot of people know that. They didn't say anything about it on the packaging, but I do think it's still a little bit shorter than Evil-Lyn's wand was in the original figure, and you can see that this kind of handguard portion of it is a little bit smaller, but still it looks really cool. I think they did a good job with it. So you know, this is a great figure. I'm really enjoying it. So let's go ahead and put the extension on it. So a lot of times the modern figures will have like a little bit more of an extension so that you can turn her wand into a staff, because a lot of the times on the cartoons or in the movies or something, it showed her having a staff. But this one, I think they didn't quite make it long enough. It does make it look a little more like how I was talking about the '80s version had a longer wand, but it's a bit longer than that. It's too long to be a wand, and it's too short to be a staff. So I don't know if it works out that well, but you can get her into a two-handed pose with it pretty easily, since she's got good articulation. And you can see what I'm talking about. Even with the spell casting hand, I can still get it to look like it's gripping it just enough. It kind of looks like she's kind of doing some kind of thing over here. So I think she turned out really cool. I do wish that the cape would spread out a bit more, because of the way the cape is cut, I think they probably used some kind of heating a utensil to cut this, and it seems like it kind of melted the plastic along the edges, probably to keep it from fraying, and that's a good thing. But because of that, it tends to curl up the cape a little bit, and I wish it would stay more in this kind of pose where it's flared outwards a little more. But you can see even now it's starting to try to curl up a little bit. But she's a really cool figure, and I'm really happy with her. So I'm glad I was able to pick this one up. She's definitely a good addition to my collection. So, but I tend to like the new Eternia figures for the most part, because I feel like they're really good at capturing the flavor of the early '80s He-Man, the ones that I originally played with before there even was a Filmation cartoon, when all we had to go off of was the mini comics and our own imagination. I've talked a lot about how the mini comics are my favorite versions, and I don't really want to sound like I'm disrespecting the Filmation cartoon, because I did love the Filmation cartoon an awful lot, but He-Man was kind of already fully formed in my mind from those mini comics, and just from the way that I would play my own sort of He-Man games with the figures, that I didn't really use a whole lot from the Filmation cartoon, other than like some of the newer characters that they made or whatever. I hardly ever had He-Man turned into Prince Adam. I didn't really have any use for that. Oddly enough, I like the Prince Adam stuff a lot more once I grew up and could kind of appreciate some of the more kind of family aspects of it, with his father and his mother, and his relationship with them, and his long lost sister, and all that kind of stuff. That became much more interesting to me as an adult, when I would go back and rewatch what, for the most part, was a pretty entertainingly goofy cartoon, by my adult eyes, but still sometimes would surprise you with a little bit of depth, and a little bit of drama that you wouldn't quite expect out of something that was just an '80s kiddie cartoon that was made to sell toys. And like I said, for the most part, it was a pretty goofy show, like in that charming, endearingly goofy sort of way. Like I enjoy watching it. It's just wholesome entertainment for me. But sometimes it does surprise you a little bit, and I like that. So Evil-Lyn, when the figure first came out, she came out late enough in the second wave, or maybe early enough in the third wave, however you want to define that. She was one of the last characters that was introduced before the cartoon show started, but she was late enough in the game that she didn't really appear in much media before the cartoon. I don't remember in the DC comics at all. I don't remember in the mini comics at all. I don't remember her in any storybooks or anything like that would have come out prior to the animated series. Now, she had such a big role in the animated series that, of course, they used her in a lot of that stuff afterwards. But that didn't necessarily mean that. Basically, I had to come up with what this character was in my head, and decide what Evil-Lyn was once I'd purchased the figure. She was one that I didn't know about until I actually saw her on the shelves, and then, ooh, there's a bad girl in Masters of the Universe. That's cool. Liked that. And yeah, she was mostly a reprint of Tila with a different head, but it still worked out pretty well. I kind of feel like the color scheme made her just different enough that it worked. So I always liked Evil-Lyn, and thankfully, like, I think it's probably because she's just such an archetype, with that evil magician witch kind of, like she's like a femme fatale kind of character almost, and it wasn't too different from how she wound up being portrayed on the Filmation show, how I did her. Only she was a little more sort of I don't know if sexy is the right term, because I was just a little kid at the time. I wasn't really thinking about that, but I was thinking about Catwoman, who was one of my favorite villain characters when I was a kid, obviously, because I'm a big Batman fan. So, Catwoman was definitely a character that I kind of thought about when I was trying to figure out what Evil-Lyn was. And Ursa from Superman 2, she was another one that like I kind of had in the back of my mind. And if you ever see Conan the Destroyer, the sequel to the original Conan, not quite as good as the original Conan, but still pretty good. I like it. Sarah Douglas is actually in that movie and plays an evil witch queen who is not too dissimilar from Evil-Lyn. I don't remember if I saw that movie before I had the figure, but even if I saw it afterwards, I think Taramis would have somewhat influenced how I saw Evil-Lyn as well. She definitely looked like Evil-Lyn. Like I always thought the figure of Evil-Lyn looked kind of like Sarah Douglas. I had no idea who Sophia Loren was at that early age, because I wouldn't learn about her till later. But Sarah Douglas, I do from Superman 2, and she looks kind of like Ursa a little bit. So that probably was a little bit of an influence on my interpretation of Evil-Lyn as well. Oh yeah, and the skull on her helmet I just noticed is like it's that same gunmetal as the rest of the skulls around her belt. Really cool figure. I'm really happy with it. Um, I've been impressed with most of the new Eternia figures in Masterverse. I've liked a lot of the Revelation figures, but I think the new Eternia figures, for the most part, have been my favorite. So definitely worth picking up. I highly recommend. Anyway, that's it for Evil-Lyn. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, make sure you like and subscribe. All the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Evil-Lyn, both the figure and the character in general. Next episode, I will be back to open up Triclops. And Triclops is a character that, tended to get paired up with Evil-Lyn a lot in the cartoon. I always kind of tended to think of him like Evil-Lyn's sort of henchman, her personal henchman in that, because she worked with him so often. But we'll probably discuss that more tomorrow when we open up our new Eternia Triclops. But that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. We will talk to you next time. Bye. So,